Hello and welcome to another in our series of LinkAbility webinars based on my book LinkAbility for Powerful Strategies to Maximize Your LinkedIn Success. Today we are going back to basics and looking at the fundamentals of what makes a compelling LinkedIn profile. Now we'll look at the main elements of profiles, and I'll share with you some ideas on how to make yours stand out from your competitors. Now, LinkedIn has changed a lot this year, and if you're new to the platform, you may not know all of its features. It's become quite complicated, and so we'll deal with some of that for you today. Now, before we start, a short piece of housekeeping. Once the webinar is over, we'll get the replay link organised and send that out to you by email in the next day or so. Now, let's get started on turning your LinkedIn profile into a thing of beauty. The first thing is to ask yourself, what is it that you are trying to achieve? Now, this might be as simple as being headhunted for a job, but it might be much more complicated than that too. So say, for instance, you run your own business. You might want to promote the business. Well, that's fair enough. But you might also want to be seen as an expert in your field and be invited to speak at events. Well, that's 3 objectives before you've even added in wanting to meet and network with other people in your industry. So being clear on what you want your profile to do, who you want to attract, and what action you want them to take having looked at it is the bedrock on which your profile sits. And each of us is different, so consequently how we do our profiles will be different. But there are some specific best practices you need to be aware of, and those are what we are going to talk about today. So first of all, your cover image. Now, if you still have LinkedIn's blue default one, may I respectfully suggest that you get rid of it. It sends the message that you don't really care about your profile, that you don't get LinkedIn. Cover images are also what people see first when visiting your profile, so yours needs to be eye-catching and attention-grabbing. This is very important real estate, so use it to best advantage. Give people a synopsis of what you do, share your tagline, add your website address, upload a relevant image or images to visually illustrate your work. What you decide to include will depend on your situation, but here are the main points to remember. Less is more. Don't make your cover image too crowded. Try to include, or if you try to include everything, it will just look like a complete mess. Remember that you won't always be seen on desktop. Many people look at LinkedIn on their mobiles, where the ratio between your photo and the cover image differs. So sometimes simple is better. Now, take these 2 examples of recent clients. The top one is a plain white background with just a simple logo. There's no doubt what the person does. It says there, front and center. The lower one is a simple image of a landscape. Now, I don't usually recommend cityscapes or landscapes as the backdrop, but in this case, it's entirely relevant because this person has a travel company. So the name of her business is very clear there. She's included the logo and shown an image of the area. These next 2 examples are more complex. The top one includes a logo at the top left, you can see there, well above the profile photo, you'll notice. and we'll come back to that one. In the middle is a statement about what this person does, and at the right is a visual image of him doing just that, holding a microphone, plus the addition of the name of his podcast. Underneath that is mine, and to the left I have the title of my book, in the middle a photo of it, and at the right my logo, web address, and a statement about my area of expertise. Now that's 5 elements, which I think is getting a bit on the busy side. The next tip is to make sure that it fits all devices. So that's laptop, tablet, and mobile, of course. So this is where size and positioning of your elements becomes crucial. It's very easy to think that if it looks good on the device that you're using, it'll be fine on all others. Well, it won't, unfortunately. On this image, you can see that the second line here by the arrow of her text about what she does, which is really important, is obscured by the photo. Now, this is an image on desktop. On mobile, both these lines are hidden behind her photo. So there's no indication on the cover image of what she does. The third tip is to make sure your cover image is relevant to what you do. Now, in this case, which appears to be a holiday snap, it sends 2 messages. The first is that you're not taking LinkedIn seriously and don't want to make it easy for people to know what you do. Well, this person happens to be in business development and sales in the transport industry, and you wouldn't know that from the cover image, would you? The second message it sends is that you don't get or understand LinkedIn and what it's for. It's not for sharing holiday photos unless you're a travel agent. This is important real estate, so make it work for you. Let's move on to profile images. Your profile photo is arguably the most important aspect of your profile, bar none. That's because first impressions are most important. People will see that straight away and form an impression, rightly or wrongly, of you based on what they see. So be consistent. If you're a comedian, by all means have a windswept and interesting image of yourself. And if you wear a uniform or a certain type of dress at work, then wear that. But for the rest of us, we need to look smart, professional, and capable. How that manifests itself in dress and appearance is entirely up to the individual. If you're flamboyant and like people to know it, make your photo outrageous. If you're conservative and your audience or target market is traditional, reflect that in your profile image. Here are some tips for profile photos. The first one is make it close, not from a distance, as you can see here. People need to be able to recognize you if they run into you at a network event. I doubt very much you would recognize this gentleman if you saw him anywhere else. Smile, show teeth. It gives you an aura of warmth, approachability, and authenticity. You don't want to appear sullen, uncommunicative, or unfriendly. And remove anything that is distracting, the background, for instance. Try to have the photo taken against a plain background. You can see that in this image here on the right, there is something in the background and there's also something in the foreground that's confusing. Now, professional photos are always better than selfies taken from your phone. And if you can afford it, having a range of professional images available to market yourself is an excellent investment. But don't be talked into oddball angles or head chops or any other artistic inventions. The purpose here is to look professional, capable, and employable. Now let's look at headlines. Your headline is possibly the most 220 important characters you ever write online. After your photo, the headline is what will attract someone to read more. In fact, your headline has only two jobs to do: to give readers an overview of what you do and persuade them to delve more deeply into your profile. Your headline follows you around on LinkedIn, just like your photo, so it's important that you spend time on this. You need to consider what you say and how it looks. Now, there are two main ways to write a headline: as a full sentence and as single words or phrases. Now, a single sentence or a full sentence might be, I help doctors and medical practitioners better manage their money so they can accrue long-term wealth. You'll notice that buried in this is a formula, which is this: what you do, for whom, and the benefits. You might also like to add a delivery method like coaching or in-house training. Alternatively, you can split it into segments separated by different kinds of symbols, bullet points, or even emojis. This can be very effective as it's eye-catching and easy to read. So let's look at some examples. This one uses the formula of what the person does, who for, and the results, the one that I've just mentioned. It adds detail to through the three-stage process mentioned there: survive, revive, and thrive. There's also a call to action with the ask me how, and I like that. I do like calls to action. These are two from other LinkedIn trainers, and in the top one, you can see the simple use of the / with spaces either side. She uses phrases instead of sentences and also has a call to action at the bottom with her phone number. The bottom one uses the vertical line that's found on the keyboard, but again, it's not crammed in and there's plenty of white space. Here at the top, formatted text is used, which looks pretty effective, don't you think? You can find all kinds of weird and wonderful fonts like this at the link I've put on the screen there just under the example on the right. It's just a simple matter of copying and pasting. Now, the lower one uses a variety of emojis to convey different meanings and the types of work that they do. And I like emojis in headlines. Our next example uses only one emoji, but I like these because they're big and bold and they separate very nicely each block of text. And the final example is a question, although it's missing the question mark at the end of the sentence. Essentially, though, it's looking to attract a certain group of people who might be their ideal clients. It's presenting a problem and offering a solution. So this is very neat and very nicely done. Now then, the About section. This is another very important section of your profile, and there are 2,000 characters available here, and you want to use them all because if they read nothing else on your profile, people will read this. Now, there's been a big move away from large blocks of text all over LinkedIn, and nowhere more so than in the About section. So use shorter sentences and bulleted lists. Subheadings too are more favored, and all of these make it easier to scan and to read. If you want to make a big splash with your About section, make sure it looks as good as it reads. The words are important too, of course, though, and so you should make sure that everything is accurate. Mistakes on your profile, which are very easy to make, look sloppy. Your About section needs to summarize your career, or if you're starting out, your academic history, your plans for the future, what you've achieved, what you love to do, and something quirky about you that makes you stand out from everyone else. Now, most of us find it very hard to write about ourselves, so I suggest you start with a few subheadings like the ones on this slide. So jot down some points under the ones that are relevant to you and work from those. You want 3 to 5 points per heading. And don't worry, we'll make this slide available to you separately because I know there's quite a lot written on here. Now, there are some things to avoid, and one of them is using meaningless phrases like passionate about, or good communicator, or pays attention to detail. If you want people to know these things about you, you need to show them through examples. And one way might be to say that you consistently meet or exceed your KPIs for a certain activity. Or tell us of a situation where you saved the company's bacon by spotting an error or in a big report of some kind. Some really good example. And you can see here on this example that I have used a lot of bullet points, and I have used subheadings as well. The subheading who I am and my clients are, so that you can see very easily that there isn't an awful lot of long text. And always end your about section with your contact details so that you can easily be found, accompanied by a call to action if possible, which is how I do it here on my profile. Let's move on to the featured section. Now, this has been added this year, and it's a wonderful addition to profiles. They allow them to be colourful, moving, and to showcase yourself in a lively, fun, but still professional way. LinkedIn allows all kinds of files to be added to the featured section with nice big thumbnail images, as you can see here. You can include a YouTube or Vimeo link, images, documents, posts, and articles from your LinkedIn profile too. There's no excuse to have a boring featured section. So here are some examples, and in this first one, the first 3 items are all YouTube videos. In the second, you can't see this unfortunately, but these are all moving GIFs, and there's something about a movement on a profile that really does grab attention. In the third, my friend John Asperian has an intro video of himself, first of all, which I highly recommend, and I'll come back to in a second. Then an image of his book and some information about it. It's called Content DNA, and it's really well worth the read. And then a link to his blog post. Now, on mine, I have an advert for this webinar, which of course I'll take down later, an introductory video about my book, and then on the right, a moving GIF to catch people's eye. Now, an introductory video like this one doesn't have to be very long. In fact, mine's only less than a minute, I think. You just need to say who you are, what you do, for whom, and something that will encourage people to look at the rest of your profile. Now, don't be shy about this because it demonstrates you're comfortable in front of a camera, which is an excellent soft skill to have when you're a job seeker, a business owner, or a business professional. The experience section. Now, it's been in the past traditional to have your experience section read like your CV and list your jobs one after the other. And for many people, that's still a great way to do it. But remember, this is not your CV. It's your online advertisement, your biography for yourself. So you can take whatever creative license you like within the bounds of the truth, of course. For example, you might not want all your jobs listed. I don't. I have only the ones that are most recent and relevant to what I do now. If you have big gaps in your experience section, be brave and do something different. For instance, Instead of listing jobs by employer and role, list them by skills. Say you've done the work for a number of different companies, but not recently, then list it that way and mention the employers in the accompanying text. That way you don't have to state the dates that you worked for any particular company. This is particularly good if you are new in your career and don't have a big CV. It's also ideal if you're mature in your career and want to showcase the breadth of your skills. Or if you've done the same job for a variety of different companies on a contract basis for short stints. Think outside the square with LinkedIn, because you can be creative and work out the best way to showcase your individual skills, background, and experience. To add visual interest to your experience section, add media, as you can see here. This could be your website. If it displays well, you could use your URL. Otherwise, take a screenshot of your homepage. It could be videos hosted on YouTube or Vimeo, not even necessarily of yourself. It could be a great TED Talk, for instance. It could be images of you receiving an award, or it could be testimonials or recommendations. Look at this one here. You can see that under the heading what I do, that Patrick has 2 testimonials here. In fact, if you look at the bottom of that section, it says what others say. And so he has added 2 testimonials in the form of images. And when you open them, this is what you see. There's some text about how Patrick helped Adrian and a photo of Adrian. Now, the reason that I like this is that it confers legitimacy, and it shows that it's not made up, of course. And this is such a great idea and I only discovered it while researching this webinar, and that I'm going to copy this and put this on my own profile. I think it's just a great idea. Now, I'm often asked how you get rid of the grey box at the left of a job and add in a company's logo. Well, it's very simple. You have to connect to the organisation's LinkedIn company page. So first, check that they have one with their logo on it, and then go into the editing section, delete the company name and retype it until the correct company page and logo appear in the drop-down list. Choose it, save it, and it will appear on your profile. Job done. Let's move on to education. Now, I confess that this is a tricky one. If you have tertiary qualifications from a recognised school or university, add that at the top. But if you don't have this, it can be a bit intimidating. So here's what I advise. First, don't put in your high school or make it obvious that you don't have a higher education. That is, unless your school is prestigious and you want people to know you went there. Second, you will undoubtedly have done some kind of professional development, whether working for a company or just independently. So this is where you should list that so people can see that you are someone who likes to learn. Like experience, you can add links here, as you can see, but if you want to have a logo showing instead of the grey box at the top left there, the organisation you did your training through must have a dedicated page on the school section of LinkedIn. Unfortunately, not all of them do, and so you can see here we have just got the grey box. Don't forget that whatever you put here will show at the top of your profile on your introduction card, so make it worthwhile. On to skills. Now, skills are important on your profile to let prospective employers or people you want to do business with know what you do best. List all the skills that you can think of, then take a look at other profiles and see what other people are using on theirs. My top tips are to pin your most important skills to the top. Delete any that are irrelevant and take out any double ups or repetitions of the same skill so that you get more endorsements for the ones you really want. If possible, put those with the highest number of endorsements at the top, and you can reorder this section. So make sure you put the ones you want people to see at the higher up in the list. Now you'll notice that with this example from my profile, I've got one at the top that's got very few endorsements indeed. Now that's because it's for my new book and it's only been out a month, so not many people yet have got it or endorsed me for it. But right underneath it, there are 2 skills that I have over 100 endorsements for. You're aiming to get as many endorsements as you can. Recommendations. Now, it does seem a shame to me that these are buried at the bottom of our profiles because they're very important and you should aim to get as many of these as you can. In fact, if you like this webinar, I'd be delighted if you were to write me a recommendation to say so. I don't have any recommendations on my profile for webinars yet, mainly because I haven't asked before, but up to you. Ask for 3 times as many recommendations as you expect to get because people have all the right intentions but tend to forget to do it. Now, the value of these is that a real LinkedIn member who's connected to you has to write the recommendation from their profile. So recommendations are legitimate. They can't be made up. So don't know who to ask a recommendation of? Well, think about bosses, past and present, colleagues, people you work with, fellow students maybe, or networking buddies even. Anyone that you feel will say nice things about you. And if you want to use the reciprocation method of acquiring recommendations, write them for others, particularly those who will be able to write one for you in return. Reciprocity on LinkedIn is a really important thing. Now, there are 2 other sections that we don't have time to look at today or to fully cover. These are volunteer work and accomplishments. Now, if you do community work of any kind, I suggest you include it. And do take the time to look at the different accomplishment sections to see if there's anything you want to add there. It's quite comprehensive and there are quite a number of different things that you might like to add that you don't want to put elsewhere on your profile. Now, this section isn't looked at a lot by viewers to your profile, but it's good to have something there in case someone wants to dig deeper into your background. Now then, that's all we have time for today. I've covered all the main areas of your profile that you need to have in good order if you're looking for a job, want to move up the career ladder, want to change direction or promote your brand or business. Once you have all this in place, you'll be able to start using all the other great LinkedIn features. And for that, you might like to read my book, LinkAbility. Copies of this can be found at all major online bookstores and at my website, wordwizard.co.nz. So thanks so much for joining us today. I hope you found this information useful. If you have put any questions in the chat, then we will have a look at those later and we will respond to you personally. And as I said at the beginning, we'll have this replay for you hopefully in the next 24 hours, and we will be sending you the link by email. So thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Bye for now.